feature of how you can invite your friends to watch online with you while you're watching the live stream. You can click on this plus button where it will pull up a list of your friends where you can invite them to join you in watching the live stream. You can do the same on your mobile device. So if you go to this share button here, you will be given a list of your friends where you can send them an invite to watch along with you while you're watching the live stream. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and we hope you stay connected with us, and make sure to like our Facebook page so that you can get all of the updates on what's happening here at Family Church. Hi guys, I'm Katie, and we at Family Church wanted to show you guys how to give on our live stream website. At live.ourfamily.church, you will see the option to give online on the right-hand side of your screen. You will be taken to a safe environment where you can see that your connection is secure. There are two options when you go to give. You can give one time or set up a reoccurring gift. So that's it, but we really want to know how we can support you and your family during this time. So please let us know, and we'll continue to be praying for you guys.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Wednesday night program. We're so glad that you've joined us. Let me get to a few announcements, and then we'll get to everything we want to talk about. First of all, hit that share button right now. Hit the share. I bet what we're talking about is of interest to people all over the world because we're going to be talking about the coronavirus. So if you hit that share, somebody you know that's on Facebook right now could see it, want to join us and hear what we have to talk about. The other thing is our students, and a lot of great things our students are doing this summer. And in addition, they're going to Camp Anderson, July 27th to 31st. And there's very limited space left. So if you want to get your student on there, make sure they sign up. They can go online to do that. We also have a great new small group that's starting. And it's called Peacekeepers Small Group. It's meeting on Saturday. It's for military and it's for first responders also. And you can sign up by going to the group finder for our small groups and signing up for there. And then finally, your giving makes everything possible that we do here at this church. We have been able to find a way to continue to reach people digitally like we're doing, electronically, and it's been very effective. So thank you for giving. If you want to, it's at give.ourfamily.church. So this episode today is called The Doctors Are In, but just to let you know, not everyone sitting here is a doctor. There are two doctors here, like they really have DR ahead of their name. So that makes it a quorum, and so officially the doctors are in. Let me introduce them to you. First of all, we have Dr. Penelope Pauly. She is a children's endocrinologist. It's hard to say fast. And she is with Arnold Palmer and Orlando Health. And then we have Chris Sapp, who is not a doctor, but always wanted to be a doctor his whole life. And maybe by being here, you'll get an education for that. But he's on the Windermere Town Council. I asked him to be here because he knows some of the things, statistics going on in our community, locally, right here within our campuses. And also works in a business, and so he's going to give some insights with that. And then Dr. Jerry Cartzenell, who was with us before when we were talking about this, right when it started. We all got together. And he is a speaker, an author, and works with pediatrics, works with special needs.
That's correct.
And does a lot of great things there. So we appreciate all of you, all of them church members. And so we wanted to, first of all, sort of talk about this. We're in July now, and I know that when we first talked way back in, was in March or so, we were going, this thing should be over, probably sometime around June. And we felt very comfortable saying that. And now here we are in July going, is it ever going to end? So we don't know. So we wanted to do sort of an update here today to really sort of talk about what we know about this virus so far, and then some of the effects and how we can sort of, I hate using get back to normal. I forgot what normal was, to be honest with you. But so medically, we have our two doctors here. What do we know about this virus, say now? What have we learned from July that maybe, we didn't really understand in March? Jerry, why don't you start?
Well, certainly we've learned a lot about what they call the case fatality rates. In other words, who is this going to be most likely devastating for? When we first talked, we weren't quite sure how this was going to play, for example, in children or young adults. And we now know, both from data from Minnesota as well as the data that's come from South Korea combined with Italy and Spain, that this disease is very dangerous for our elderly population, 70s and 80s, particularly with those who have what they call comorbid conditions such as high blood pressure or cardiovascular disease or obesity. And it can be very devastating for them. We also know from a recent study that's just been released that vitamin D seems to protect us from a devastating outcome. And the levels of what they call the case fatality drop precipitously when your vitamin D levels are above 35. So it would be who of us to be taking more vitamin D.
Okay. Penelope, what have you learned?
Yeah, I think we've also learned that initially the focus was pretty much, wash your hands. If you wash your hands and don't touch your face, we should be okay. And I think time has shown that it's not only washing our hands and our face. We also need to maintain distance. So we have learned how the, transmission of these viruses through droplets, which is nothing more than very small bubbles of, secretions, and most of them we can't really see them. So if we are within 6 feet distance, even laughing, coughing, sneezing, singing, or just being, having a conversation, it's enough to be able to transmit that. So that's where the role for the masks has come on board, and also to maintain the distance.
Yeah, I think we're getting pretty good at the distance. I think we're It's just becoming very natural now to like not approach anybody and give them a hug, and it feels weird not to shake. But the mask thing is sort of a thing that's been a problem for a lot, and that was sort of is it really effective? How effective is it? You know, what sort of spraying machines are we in terms of what are we shooting out of our mouth? How far? I mean, is the mask really helping to keep that from happening?
Well, I think with the masks, there's always controversy about that. I mean, the World Health Organization came out at the end of May and said that they're not needed, they're not necessary. And then it got reversed, and then it is necessary. And then all of a sudden, you know, as physicians, we're taught to wear masks very specifically for a short period of time. It's well sealed, because if it isn't, especially if you wear glasses, they'll fog up because everything comes out. We wear them once. They're not kept in our purse. They're not hanging in the rear view mirror. We don't pull them out of our pocket. They're not looped around our ears. They're tied very specifically to create a great seal. The problem with masks, obviously, is the lay public isn't going to be doing it quite in that fashion. And of course, when we're in an operating theater, we're not touching our face. Our hands are either clasped or they're busy doing something. The studies have come out that we touch our face 17 to 25 times. So if you've got your mask on, you're adjusting it, you wear a beard and it kind of comes down, you pull it up, then you're sort of defeating the purpose of the mask. And I think going along with the problem with the aerosolization of the virus, it's actually being suspended in the air. It's not just limited to droplets, which the mask will capture, but it's actually part of the fluid air, and that's why it's moving along. The social distancing is going to be spectacular, but if we're in a close proximity, the masks may have a more limited value, but we'll have to work on that and see if we can improve that. But the bandanas and all that,
oh man, but they're so cool looking.
They're great looking, and they may give
I
us
just got my
sense,
University of Georgia one, so I'm
I
all
think
set.
The issue that I'm seeing, the angst that I'm seeing, the anxiety I'm seeing, is that this virus is scary for people to manage. It's creating anxiety, and they can't control it. So the mask actually centers that they're controlling it now. Whether it's really doing a great job or not, time will tell on that.
And the glove thing sort of went away.
Yeah.
Because there were people in stores with gloves, and I'm thinking, you're touching that, you're touching that,
Exactly.
you're touching that. That has proven to be not very effective.
Yeah, correct. So the moving around wearing gloves and touching everything, that's completely pointless. I agree with the mask, but it's also, you have to think that when you wear a mask, you're not really doing it for yourself. You are wearing a mask to protect the others. And so this is a good moment to really think and love about our neighbor. When I'm wearing a mask, I'm protecting you. And when you're wearing a mask, you're really protecting me. And if we both are wearing masks, then we are caring and protecting each other. So your droplets are not coming to me, or ideally, at least not the big droplets, maybe small, medium sizes. Yeah, I know. And
I have big droplets?
and
be careful.
But then hopefully the mask that I'm wearing, it's going to prevent some of those to come to me in the same way my mask to your effect.
Chris, all this talk about the medical, it's just not affecting us medically. I mean, it's affecting us socially, it's affecting us business-wise and everything. I thought it was interesting. You're a real estate agent, and business is good.
Business is good. Nationwide, the National Association of Realtors reported a 45% increase from May to June, which is absolutely extraordinary. There's never been a jump like that since they've been recording it, I think, since 2001. Usually you can get a good gauge by the economy by looking at real estate. I'm by no means an economist. But what it doesn't account for is ones that aren't in that buying pool, and those are a lot of the ones affected right now, the ones that are in the hospitality service industry, the ones that are renting right now. They were never in that buying pool to begin with. So we've got to be mindful of those, and the best way to get them back to work is to make sure the economy stays open. As we stay on the topic here of masks, whatever your opinion is about it, When you're going into a business, let's treat it like you're going into somebody's home. You go into somebody's home, you ask, should I take my shoes off before I come in the door? Or should I do this? There's generally house rules. These are private businesses. I don't care if it's a corporation or a mom and pop business. They have signs on the door, please wear a mask when you get in. They shouldn't be in the position, of course, to control that or police that. But I think it's our job to be able to get people back to work and to have empathy for those that are scared to go out. Consumer confidence is going to be a big driver. And to be able to make them feel comfortable, they're going to want to see to go into stores and such and see employees, seeing fellow patrons, covering up.
Right. Now, I know I've been on some of your Windermere Town meetings, your Zoom meetings. They sort of go over the number of cases that they know. What do we know? What's active right now? Sort of, they give the Orange County numbers. They give Windermere numbers.
Right. So Orange County, as of Monday morning, was 14,407, which is an increase of 375, and we've been seeing over the last couple of weeks large increases of 500-600 a day. Towards mid last week, there seemed to be a little bit of stabilization, and I'm sure the medical people here, can probably advise the same thing. We've got to be cautiously optimistic that there's some sort of level out. And this is completely anecdotal, but if we had Memorial Day happen, we had the opening up of the economy, we had school getting out, and we're seeing the median age at 33, you're just seeing all these people go out in the public. They're getting into tight quarters. I'm not sure I've seen much evidence that it is taking place in actual, retail stores. A lot of these transmissions. I think this is Dr. Pino. It said when they have interviewed some of these younger persons that have obtained the virus, that a lot of the stories were, I was maybe at a house party or something like that.
Right.
Nobody was wearing masks. There could be 20 people in a small area, and I think that's some things that we just need to watch out for.
Well,
I mean,
we're
all adults
house
here.
parties. That's it. I'm done. These raves.
I'm
not going anymore.
We were contained for 2 months, so it's
Right.
we want to get out there, especially summertime is for barbecuing and having the parties and being with family and things like that. We just need to be mindful. I think probably the most important thing is that social distancing, portion of it. And, this church, the retailers, I think they've done a pretty darn good job of, figuring out, how to social distance. And
I've gotten very good at cleaning here after every service. Man, really amazing. I'm doing bathrooms too. So just so you know, we're wiping it all down here.
But in Windermere, back to numbers, we've seen, larger increases. We're at, I think, 348. Something like that within the zip code.
Deaths?
No, excuse me.
48.
Actual 348 cases.
348.
Yeah, and it was only a
okay.
couple weeks ago. We were hanging around less than 50. So this has increased largely recently. In the town limits, which were very small, there was 14, but we don't get as many reports on that because they report on zip codes. So we're not getting those reports as often. But don't let that deceive you, because Ocoee is only 1 mile from here or so.
Sure.
So if there's cases over there, it's not being counted in that. So, it's close by. It's just being mindful. I don't know if it's been, mentioned yet, but it's the 3 W's, as you would say. You wash your hands, you watch your distancing, and wear a mask.
Right.
So, and I think that's the key of getting through this. Everybody work together, have empathy for each other. And then on top of that, don't judge the ones maybe that aren't doing necessarily what they're
It's in
supposed
the Bible,
to.
I think.
There's plenty of reasons, to why somebody may not be wearing a mask. It could be medically. Children obviously may not be able to do it, and of course I'm sure they can expand on that too.
So, well, when you hear all those numbers, Penelope, you look at so you have cases going up, there's death rate, there's hospitalization numbers. I don't know what other one I'm missing in all of that. So you have confirmed cases are in the hospital, and deaths. What number does the medical community look at and say, that's most concerning?
I mean, I think mortality will be most concerning, or a course of hospitalization too, because in terms of number of cases, I agree with you. There are many more cases being reported, and even in the hospital, but not necessarily every person that is COVID positive is having the severe case of low respiratory infection, being with a severe pneumonia or intubated or anything like that. So, in fact, we have a lot of patients that, for any kind of surgery, elective or not, they're being swabbed for COVID as protocol. So we're definitely testing so much more now than before. And so there's that fine line about, okay, there are more cases, but are they being as sicker as we would have expected, as we were seeing at the beginning when it was pretty much affecting only older people? Or if you look at the New York data, initially back in March and April, it was really scary, but everybody was really very sick, intensive care units, and we're not necessarily seeing that, at least locally.
And why? I know locally the deaths was around 58 in Orange County, not the zip code, but Orange County. One of them was my neighbor, so I know that number very well, and he was one of the early ones that died. And I was expecting it to go skyrocket. And the number over the past 3 weeks has only increased maybe 4 or 5. So, but then I looked down at Palm Beach, and I think they're like around 1,000 or 700 or something like that. Should we give congratulations to our medical community that they've been able to stop this and not have so many deaths? Or is it not as deadly as we thought it was?
Or is the virus changing? So out of Italy, I saw a Italian pulmonologist discuss saying that cases that he's seeing now, if these were 6 weeks ago, would be dying, and they're not. So we have that option that as the virus continues to change, it becomes less virulent, less death-causing. We might also be getting smarter, not throwing everybody on a ventilator. They're having anxiety because shortness of breath is one of the symptoms of COVID, and people can have anxiety and impair their respiratory movements, and then we just throw them on a ventilator. And they're saying, well, that's not a good thing. When you put these people on a ventilator, they're most likely not going to come off of it alive. So we might be getting smart on how to handle it. The virus might be changing. And like you were saying, as far as the cases going, as we're finding out about all the cases that are either asymptomatic or mild, that's diluting the case fatality rate. So the numbers look better, but we're seeing right now the WHO says that 99% of the people who get this are going to be just fine. And it's the 1% we talked about earlier. The 1% are going to be those most likely elderly or those with comorbid conditions that are going to have a tough time with it. But the children should be fine. And that's why you're not hearing the children's hospitals being overrun with kids in the ICU from COVID-19.
Yeah, we have a couple of people we know and love that are in this church, 75 older, that are really fighting it. I mean, it's just wearing them out, and it's taking everything they can. But they're fighters, and it seems like they're sort of a step ahead of it a little bit. But it's always been interesting about children, and you have kids 2 and 4. Did I get those ages right?
Yep,
2 and 4.
Yep.
And so it's been always interesting that the kids don't seem to be as susceptible to it. So we should give kids more credit, huh? They got a pretty good immune system.
Yeah, I mean, we know kids are resilient in general. Any kind of illness that typically kids tend to bounce much quicker than, the adults. We know that, well, we don't know, but one of the things that it's being considered is that since children get exposed to different types of viruses and are constantly fighting something, there is a thought of cross-reaction in antibodies, meaning that from a previous infection to another virus, some of those antibodies may be able to help them fight this, even if they have been exposed. But I also want to mention these rare but documented complication. We haven't really been seeing this here locally, but in New York, there has been over 200 cases documented of multi-system inflammatory syndrome, which is in
Chris, you know what
response
that is, right?
in response to that viral infections to COVID. The body is responding, basically creating a hyper-inflammatory response, and it can potentially damage different organs, including the heart. So it's very similar to another condition called Kawasaki's. Very similar, but it doesn't meet all the criteria necessarily.
Okay. So we have all this medical information. We have our statistics and everything. But the impact to this, you have to think about medically how it's impacting us. That's important because that may help us to solve some of these issues. But then you have economically. We are physical people, but we're also relational people, and we're also people that have been designed by God to work. And, here in Windermere, Chris, there's a lot of Disney employees, executives, right, in this area. There's a lot of Universal, SeaWorld types that really are desiring it. Are you seeing any sort of impact just in lifestyle and the way things are? We used to have those wonderful monthly meetings, parties here, the Friday nights with the food trucks.
Sure.
It's all sort of gone away. This is going to have some impact on
most
us.
recently was the pancake breakfast. The town puts on
Right.
Every 4th of July. It's one of those events where all the locals, they come to mingle and talk to each other, and council decided it's too much risk, especially with some older population here, to have a mass gathering, in that regard. Food trucks, no more. At least hopefully September we start them up again.
Okay.
I think the craft beer festival, which that'll end up
All right,
being
we're not
canceled.
promoting that here on this church, but I understand what you're saying.
Right, so these are some of the big events here in town that they just are going to get canceled. We have to get used to it. And Disney is opening up hopefully this month. I think Orange County has put together a great economic task force with all these business minds from barbershop owners all the way to executives at Disney, and they're really serious about on protecting the consumer, and then being able to get their employees back to work too. And again, going back to this mask thing, we just need to get through it and self-police ourselves, because there is talk that there's potentially could be fines and things like that, and nobody wants to go down that road.
No, we don't.
What people are looking at is we need to save business, and that's the only reason these business owners and the task force are even having conversations about it.
When you deal with other issues, they have physical sort of responses, fear, anxiety. You deal with some of these things with the special needs community. What are the potential effects, and what do we need to really sort of pay attention to in our own lives to make sure that we're not going down bad paths mentally?
Well, you're absolutely right. Just the fact that you have special needs children who can't go out wearing masks because they refuse to, or they wear them improperly, like below the nose,
Right.
or whatever, and then people are quick to judge that, when you bring children out. They can't, and that puts a lot of stress on the parents. The parents now are going months without breaks from taking care of neurotypical children, let alone children on the autism spectrum, and that's really tough. Add the financial stress, maybe dad's not bringing home as much, or the check's not going as far because he took a 40% decrease. Maladaptive behaviors are huge in our families, and that the parents are, like I said, drinking more alcohol to help cope with it. The coping mechanisms aren't
Right.
healthy, which I'm worried about are going to continue after this does pass.
I heard that like ABC Liquor was an essential business.
The
And
ABC
So those-
and the
those
cannabis
sort of liquor
shops,
places,
and
yeah.
so we have some problems as a church. We need to know who these neighbors are, like you were mentioning that your neighbors, and make sure that we come over and reach out to them, letting them know that we're here. We can provide meals. It's a little bit more cumbersome, but we need to be the church and be supportive of the emotional needs, even if it's people who, like you were saying, don't want to wear the mask. Well, they're feeling bad about it, or the people who are saying they should be wearing masks. And so there's a lot of angst,
Yeah.
and I'm seeing that. And
It's building. And anger, and maybe some of these riots that occurred, and that the city sort of discontent that was going on. Certainly this quarantining embedded some of that into them, that they wanted to get out and do something, and so it's just not healthy for us to be like that. I know you're not a child psychologist, but you're working with children a lot, but what are you seeing specifically in children, some of the repercussions of all of this that's happening, and what do we need to be aware of?
Well, a lot of them are fearful, and they share that in the visits. They're pretty open about it. But other things that not only seeing in kids is lifestyle changes, right? So now we have change in how we eat. So eating more chips or drinking more soda. And so now we're also enhancing poor lifestyle choices and gaining weight. Since they're not being out and about, they're exercising less. Not everybody. Some people are exercising more than ever.
Yeah.
But
And child obesity was already a problem.
correct.
Right.
Yeah. And so in my field, in endocrinology, since I deal with diabetes, when you're not active and you're not making good choices in terms of food, that also is going to raise your blood sugars, and it just becomes a cycle.
Yeah. Chris, one of the things you help me, we serve the Olympia football team, and we weren't able to do that for the spring game, and big question marks whether going to be able to do that coming up here in school, and what's going to happen. As a Christian, as you're dealing with this, what are some of the things that you're doing to help sort of cope, and what are you sort of doing to sort of help others?
I guess really I'm seeing a positive spin on this. That's what I'm trying to take out of it, because a lot of people during this time have a question: why is God doing this? Why has He put a virus out there that is killing people, or they're losing their jobs, etc. But I read an interesting article of some odd things that people are buying now, like puzzles, popcorn is up, bicycles, board games. I mean, what are all these things they're associated with?
Right.
Things you do with your family.
Right.
So if anything has come out of this, that maybe we've been able to take a step back and look at what's important to us as church and family.
Yeah.
And on that too, I'm quite impressed by the online numbers that we get, which are church services
Sure.
and things like that. Being in business, I find it very difficult to get social media presence and things like that, and people are watching. So and this is me I'm going to be your teacher's pet, I guess, here, because you're part of you head the ministry of small groups, but my wife and I, Mandy, we put together a small group just before the pandemic, and it's centered around kayaking. So like-minded people that like to go out and
great.
kayaking. And
how cool.
when this hit, that gave us an opportunity, because it was something that we can still get out and see people. We were outdoors, able to social distance,
Right.
and do fellowship, still become closer to God, and have a connection with fellow church members, and the potentially to bring other people in,
All right.
to the church.
So if you want to be part of that kayaking small
I like
group, get in
that.
touch with me, and I'll direct you to Chris.
So
That's good. That's creative sort of thinking through all of it.
right.
And that's some of what we really need to do right now. What about you, doctor, business, mom, wife? I mean, how are you coping with all this?
I think I'm going to piggyback on what you said. I feel like we have definitely stepped back and just enjoy our times at home, since we're not so out and about. I actually feel like I have more time. It sounds weird. I do. I feel like I have more time to just sit down, enjoy a meal, and just have that quality time with my kids and my husband. And we just finished a few weeks ago. I'm part of also a small group, a women's small group, and we just finished that, and we were able to do it on Zoom, which was different, but all these women were there, and that was wonderful.
Yeah, I like the Zoom groups, but my Zoom group is getting really antsy to get together once again here very soon. They're sort of missing it. Jerry, you have a bigger family. You have special needs. Your kids are grown and everything.
Right.
How are you adapting to all this?
Well, we're pretty much going along the same way we always have. We're, if you will, because I've we're not playing this particular game. We're not entering. We're going to continue eating the same way, exercising the same way, being involved with each other the same way, supporting each other the same way. And yes, we have this COVID-19 out there and out and about, but I'm not really going to let that play a role in preparing for small group. I think we're all part of small group right here, and it's very, very important to keep that going. When we do our small group, we are meeting, and I'm also Zooming for those who can't come or don't feel comfortable coming. So we're doing both at the same time.
Right.
And that's been very effective in that way. But we're there to help people, as we always have, and I don't live and operate from a position of fear or being timid. Worrying about this isn't going to add one more day to my life. All my days have been ordained for me. When it's my time to go, God's going to bring me home, and not beforehand, not because I'm going to somebody's house. We're physicians. We're used to being around sick people.
Right.
If we didn't like to be around sick people, we wouldn't have gone into this particular field that we're in. So I've never shied away from being around illness.
Okay.
And so I'm just maintaining that same doctrine. If you bring your child to me, because autism, it doesn't care what's out there. When the kids are sick, they need to come in and be seen. It's not something you can do just with telemedicine.
Well, I love what you said. You already had healthy practices in place, which prepared you for moments like this, which nobody could ever imagine. And so that's what's so important. So let's use this time to the benefit to begin to do some of those healthy things that we need to do relationally and physically and everything else. Go to your doctors. There was a point there where people weren't going to the doctors because they were afraid to get sick and go to the doctors. I think that's over. I think people are starting to return to the doctors. You got to get your health checkups and all those other sort of things. I think for me, the biggest thing is that just bothers me is just fear. And I know there's healthy caution, but when it turns into fear and we begin to make irrational choices that aren't healthy for us, as a pastor, that's what's bothering me the most. That's what, I'm not afraid of it, but I'm just, that whole idea that people are out there suffering silently when we have a God who has ordained all of our days, that knew exactly about this situation and allowed it. And so let's use this opportunity to make our relationship with him better, get in a small group. That's what we've learned here today. Thank you for that, everybody. Use this time. You have a little extra time. Get in a small group. Begin to build those relationships that you couldn't do before. And begin to have some healthy practices now. Isn't that what God would want us to do, to grow closer to him during this and grow closer and love your neighbor more than ever? That's what we should be learning through all this. If we just get sort of self-protective and put up our masks and shields and barriers, this is not what God would want out of all this. And to do it all for the right purpose, to lead people to him. So I thank you all for what you're doing, for bringing comfort and health in all the areas that you're working in. And we appreciate you joining us and being a part of all this. Continue to join us either online. We are having the services on Sunday. We would love to have you here to join us. We're beginning to look and experiment at how we can sort of ease into some things. We think about it all the time. We're mindful, and we would love for you to join us. Friday, we have worship, and it's always a wonderful time to prepare us for the weekend and to really just exalt our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Thanks for being here. Now go be the church.